So I'll start recording now. Okay, so yeah, so I basically drew a few different systems, and I can show you quickly on how they operate and how you can manipulate them to build your project. So, starting with the simplest, we already talked about this. I'm going to isolate this guy here, which is a simple louver system. This guy is literally a curtain wall. We did already go over this, but I'll just reiterate. When you have curtain walls, all curtain walls are vertical elements, horizontal elements, and panels. So you can manipulate those and quote unquote hack them to do different things. So it's not technically a curtain wall, but that's what it's called in Revit, right? So when you look in, when you go to build walls in Revit, and you look at the curtain walls down here, all I did was take an empty curtain wall that is existing in the template. I duplicated it, and I created a vertical template, a vertical louver system. I eliminated the glass curtain panel. I made it empty because I don't want any glass in between them. And then all I did was create vertical mullions. So I said I want a vertical grid. I want them to have a maximum spacing of whatever, 6 inches we'll call it. And I used I modified one of the existing mullions in the project that was just a aluminum mullion into a wood mullion, which I can show you how to do that. And then I just put that like so. I made that, both the interior and border types. I hit OK, and then I draw that, and you'll see that I now have a louver system. So before I drew that, it would have been just a blank facade. It took me 10 seconds, and now I have vertical louvers, right? And where do we use vertical louvers? On what facades? East and west, right? So on your east and west facades, this might be a technique you use to block light or help at least control light a little better, right? So that's a vertical system, easy peasy, took 10 seconds. This is a horizontal system, the exact same situation. All I did was, instead of do the vertical one, I use the empty curtain wall. I edit type, I duplicate. I call this horizontal, and I said make this empty, system panel empty, and then instead of a vertical grid, I do a horizontal grid. I did a maximum spacing, I did 6 inches, and then instead of in the vertical mullion spot, in the horizontal mullion spot, I add the wood mullion that I created. Copy, paste, hit OK, hit OK. I draw that like any other wall, and now I have a horizontal mullion. It's not, so those kind of systems are very simple. What I did here is imagining that, okay, I have this wall, but I also have, I have glazing behind it, and let's say I want a better view out of a window. All I did to create that view was edit, can I do it here? I'll do it in a kind of elevation like this. All I did was edit the profile of that wall, and then I drew an opening in the center, and now I have a hole through that wall, right? Easy enough. Literally edit, modifying the, editing the profile. If I wanted it to have an angle to it, I can make an angled wall. Oops. It's just telling me that it was going to remove my constraints, which is fine, and I now have an angle system, right? Let's say I wanted these horizontal louvers not to be horizontal. Let's say I wanted them to have some sort of angle to them. I don't want them to be perpendicular to the ground. I want them to be on some sort of angle. If I select inside of my, wall and scroll down here, you'll see that the horizontal grid has an angle that I can put in. So I could say I want these at 30 degrees. And then they'll angle at 30 degrees. Very simple. These are simple things. Everybody has done all of these things in the Monster Lab, just maybe didn't realize it if you didn't know. Sure.
I want not a 2x6, I want a 2x12, not a standard size in the library. And I want them to be, this would be good for very tight or small Louver, or if I make them deeper, I can spread them apart and get more view in between. So let's say take out every other spacing 12 inches apart, make them 12 inches deep.
So if I want to space them 12 inches apart before the 12 inches deep item, all I do is go into edit type, and instead of 6 inches, I make it a foot. Hit OK, and now they're 12 inches apart. So this is very simple and very easy to iterate on. So if you do a little solar study and you're like, oh, there's too much light or not enough, I need more spacing, less spacing, it takes 10 seconds to select that and change it and then look at it again, right? Very, very simple. So to answer Craig's other question, so this in your natural, in the template that you have uploaded, you have to modify the mullions, right? So we talked about this a little bit last time. So on the project browser, you may have talked about this. I think you guys, Matt Gindelsberger did that lecture. But in the project browser, theoretically, everything that's in the project is in the project browser. You should be able to find it there, even all the families that are loaded. So Craig asked me for a different type of mullion family, so I need to modify one of the mullion families. So inside of the down at the bottom, if I collapse everything here, collapse all, you'll see that I have my views, legends, schedules, sheets, families, groups, links, right? So I want families. So if I look in the families, you'll see that I have curtain wall mullions. Inside curtain wall mullions, you'll see that I have rectangular ones. So you all have this one, likely, the CABE 2x6. Should be in there. If it's not, it's some version of that. All I do to create the 2x12 mullion that Craig wants and make it wood like I'm showing is right click on that, duplicate, rename it because we name everything descriptively. So I'm going to say 2x12, and I'm going to say it's wood, right? So nothing's different about it yet because I haven't changed anything. If I double click on that mullion now I can change it. So if I want it's already 2 inches. We talked about mullions. The widths are based off the center line of the grid. So where I draw a grid line, it's going 1 inch to the left, 1 inch to the right, so it's 2 inches. If I wanted it to be 2 inches on the left side of that line, then I would make side 2 0 and side 1 2 inches, and then that would shift the mullion back and forth. Don't worry about that right now, unless that's something you really want to do. But to make it 12 inches a foot deep, I just changed that thickness from 6 inches to a foot. And to make it a different material, I changed the material. So I come in here, clicked on material, I'm going to go to wood. I'll just use this one. That's what I've been using. So now it's wood lumber. I come back. So now nothing's changed because I just created the family. I didn't actually apply the family to my wall yet. So if I go back to my wall, I hit edit type. I go in here. I now should have the 2x12 wood, which is right here. I can copy that text exactly down, copy it down here as well, and hit OK. And now they're 12 inches deep. So not that hard to do that kind of stuff. What I also did, which on this back wall here, I created I wanted like a shelf because I was cutting this opening. So all I did to create that shelf, I'll delete it here. All I did to create that shelf was exactly, I'll just leave it. All I did was right here, I created another mullion that's 1 inch thick by 36 inches deep, and it's steel, right? So similar, like I said, if I wanted the 1 inch to be on one side or other side of the line, I wanted it to be on this side, so I put the entire width on the one side and the other side 0. I changed this was just a dark metal, it's not actually steel. If I was being a little bit better, I would call this, steel. Of course, there's already one in there. Call it steel, comma, black. And all I did was change the graphics of it to have a color that, so that when it's in consistent color, it looks like it looks right now. I hit OK. So I created that. It's 3 feet deep. It's 1 inch thick. I hit OK. And all I did to get this in here is I came in, I selected one of my mullions, I unpinned it, and then instead of the wood one, I made it this 36-inch steel one. So I just replaced it. That's all I did. That same mullion, that same thing that I created here, I used over here to create vertical fins. Right? So this is a horizontal louver, but it's on my east or west facade. So I wanted to see what I wanted to add vertical fins to that as well. So I just went in and I'll just show you what I did here. So let me rebuild.
Grid shaped to begin with.
I'm sorry?
That was a grid shaped curtain wall to begin with, get verticals and horizontal thing together.
No, so all I did was take this horizontal one. So this one started with horizontal, so built it exactly like this. I'm gonna go into let me go into a plan. I just want to look at it in elevation for a second. Just gonna do a little section here. Oops. Just got a little section. I just want to look at just that wall. So all I did to make that wall is I looked at it in this view. I'll make it consistent color so it looks a little bit more nice. So all I have is horizontals here, but I wanted to add vertical fins. So all I did to add vertical fins was I added curtain grids. If you remember, to add additional grids to the system, you can do that via this button right here, which is a curtain grid. So if I click on that button, I'm now adding a curtain grid. If I hover on the top or the bottom, it adds a vertical grid, right? It just adds a line. It doesn't actually do anything. It just adds the ability to put a mullion wherever I place it, right? So I put one there, put one here, place a bunch of them, and then, if I was being conscientious, I would make them good dimensions or make them, I made them all equal right there, so they're all now 6 feet wide. So nothing changed. Nothing theoretically changed. The only thing that actually changed is you see that now my horizontal mullion doesn't go all the way across the wall. It stops at the vertical grid because I can add a mullion at that vertical. Let me just change the scale of this a little bit. There we go. So to add in that vertical fin, all I did was I added my grid already. I go to mullion. I click on the mullion, I find the one I want to add. So let's say I wanted the 2x12 that Craig wanted. I could add this one. So I select that, I hover over the grid, I place it, and now I have a vertical right there. Vertical, I can hover as soon as I hit my grids. I can place them there, and then the ends already have the ability to add them, so I can place them there too. If I wanted it not to go to the back, I would have to edit this mullion a little bit, right? So I don't want this, the 6-inch or the 12-inch mullion centered on the wall. I want it offset in a direction, right? So if I wanted to do that, but I didn't want to change this wall, I would have to I would make a new type of mullion. So I would duplicate this, and I would call this, vertical. And then I have to offset. So this offset tells it where it falls in the wall. I think I want this at, I think I want it at 0. I'm actually not sure. I went backwards, so it's not the way I want it. So let's go forward 6. Nope. I want a -6. 2. So there we go. So I'm close. If I wanted to get it right, I could go to my level. I could see exactly what the dimension off is here. So if I wanted it to align perfectly with that back of this mullion, I'm an inch off. So instead of -6, maybe it's -5. Hit apply. It goes back. So now it's perfectly aligned to the back side. Should be perfectly aligned to the back side of that mullion. And now I just need to go through and select. What's the best way to do it? Let me go here. I'm just going to select my verticals here. Just swiping over all the verticals because unfortunately the verticals are, they're tiny little pieces because of all the horizontals. I have them all selected. I have something I don't want to select my grids. I only want the mullions. So grab the mullions and then change it to the verticals. Go back to my 3D view. So now they're all flush with the backside of that mullion. If I wanted it even further, if I wanted them all in front, then I have to move it further, right? So yeah, that's how I added it. If I decide later that I don't want that, I want one of these to be the steel one, I could select it. I could make sure I don't select the grid, come in here, make it the steel, and now there's the black steel. All right? Very simple to do. Maybe if some of you may feel like it's not simple, I promise you it is once you understand it. Yes.
Is there a way to edit those originally themselves too? Like rather than having to look at any like tilt the camera?
And what do you mean by that?
Like if instead of just being like parallel to the ground, if you make it
But you don't want to do all of them all at once, or you do want them all done?
no, like instead of when you did the billboard, you tilted them like on their y-axis.
Uh-huh.
Can you tilt them?
So instead of so these horizontals, you want them to be like this, to be down or up, right? So to do that, I believe I can do that. I would edit type. So I'd rename this one. I'll call this angled. And I think it's this dimension, this angle right here. So if I wanted it 15 degrees, apply. Okay, oops, I'll move reference. So then they all angled down like that. That's a universal thing, right? So like, if you wanted every single one to be different, now you're getting into a more custom build of something. But now all of those ones are angled down.
Is it possible to change the like frequency of each wound as the thing goes? Like the pattern, it's like it starts like more populated, going less populated.
So yes, if you wanted it to be, there's the way that you is probably the best to do it. So like if I wanted this one here to have, so one way to do it would be to model individual walls and have different walls with different spacings, right? So like I model one curtain wall that's 6 feet wide that has them spaced 6 inches. Then I have another one that has them spaced 12. So that'd be wall, 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 wall. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it would be to come in here, literally select every other one all the way down. I'm not going to do all of them. I would unpin them, and then I can just delete them. So if I wanted to delete a few here and there, I would hover around. All you have to do is unpin them and delete them, and then they start to go away, right?
New York Times building, they have a dense set of louvers above, then an opening to view, and then a less dense set below, and that pattern goes. So is it easiest just to do like you're deleting?
If I had the commission to do the New York Times building, I would probably devote 3 people's time to figure out the fastest way to do it. But to answer your question, like if they're uniform, if there's like there's some sort of pattern that I can, because the other thing could be I could also, I don't have to have this. This was created quickly. I can also do something like this if I wanted it super, super custom, which I would not do this on the New York Times building. But it depends on the regularity. If it's like, oh, there's only 3 different types. There's a 12-inch spacing, a 6-inch spacing, and a 24-inch spacing. I'd probably have 3 different walls that I then drew and did it that way. If I had the commission in the New York Times building, I'd probably have somebody scripting it so that I didn't have to worry about it. It always just updated automatically. But what I could do to make it hyper custom is I can create a curtain wall that has nothing in it. It's going to be hard to see, but it'll be there. So there's a curtain wall with nothing. I said it's going to be hard to see because there's literally nothing to see it. And so there's a curtain wall with nothing in it, literally a blank panel. It's a blank slate, and I can come in here and I can do whatever I want grid-wise. So I can, boom, I can drop some grids on. It's really hard to see. I'm just going to put mullions on it right now just so I can see it. And then I could come in and I could create, my own custom horizontals. I can space them however I wanted. And it's a custom layout, right? And then I can place my mullions. I can place all my mullions all at once. And then I could just come in here and keep you know, keep making. I could do literally whatever I want. The only thing I can't do with the way I'm doing it at this moment is to angle them all differently. Like I can't make this, I can't like have an angled piece in one and then a different angle in another. There are ways to do that. They're more hack based. You have to build multiple walls on top of each other. But you know, I could come in here and I could custom, you know, make whatever spacing I want. That's kind of a pain. It's not a pain if that's what you want. It's a pain when you want to change something and you have to go back and like move everything around, or it's not the way you want it. Building things custom every single time, you know, it's a lot of time. Any other general questions about those 2 or 3 things? So the last 2 things I'll show are these guys over here. So this one, this is a why is it disappearing on me? This guy is a custom built louver that is, you know, evokes the feelings of a rhino loft. So this is, while you can do it, it can be painful because if you want to change it, it can be hard to change. But I will quickly show you how to do something like this. So to do this, I have to do 3 things. I need to build anything that in Revit that is curved linear in shape, or even like has some like funky slants or tessellation on it that's not like a roof or a floor. You need to first build a mass, and a mass that represents the form that you want to attach something to, and then you can apply walls, roofs, and ceiling or things to that mass, right? So what I did here to make something like this is I'll do a very simplistic version. Is we talked a little bit about reference planes last week. I made some reference planes that I was going to draw on. So I'm drawing so you know in Rhino, when you want to loft something, you draw multiple curves, then you select those curves and you loft a shape across them. It's essentially what we're doing. So I'm just creating the space for me creating the planes in which to draw on, right? So I'll call this, and you have to name them. So I'll call this curve 01, curve 2, curve 2. These planes have to be named. If they're not named, you won't be able to find them to draw on. So now I have these planes to draw on. I'm going to draw myself a section at each plane just so I can look at each one individually. Try to do this as quickly as possible. So I just want to see each curve, and then I want to draw one more plane which represents kind of the flat face. So I'm draw a reference plane, draw it here, and this will be kind of like, I'll call this face. So now if I look at this section, I should see that this is my face line, right? So I can't see the plane, the curve 1, because it's, you know, it doesn't have it only is represented when it's cut through, but that's okay because I want to draw on that plane. So I need to model the mass of the curve that I want to loft, right? So in the massing and site, I click on show mass because I want to make sure I can see them. It's usually turned off by default, so make sure you click that button. And then I want to draw an in-place mass, so I'm modeling something special. I'll just call this loft 1. And if I want to draw some funky curve, I clicked on the spline. Now it's asking me, okay, what plane do you want to draw on? That's why we made the planes, because if I look here, I scroll down, you'll see I have curve 01. I select that, I hit OK. So now I can draw. So now I can see curve 01, and I can draw my spline however I want. And there is my first spline. So what I like to do, because I want to make sure that my splines kind of stay in a similar plane, you don't necessarily have to do this, but I finished this, so I still see the line here, and then I actually make myself a detail line that represents that. So I go to annotate, detail line, I match the curve, I click on that, so now I have that exact curve in a detail. I copy it, and now I'm going to go back to my plan, go to section 2, I'm going to paste that line so I just know where that line is, paste in the same place. So there's my spline that I just drew, just represented as a detail line. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing again. I'm going to go to massing and site. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to go to, let me click out of this for a second, let me close some of my windows. I'm going to go to my, I have to go back into that same, like this is a family, so I have to go back in that family and edit it. So I click on this and I go to edit in place. I go back to level 1 because I want to look at the different sections. So that's where my first spline is. Go here. I'm looking at my second one now. So then it's going to ask me the same thing again. What plane do you want to draw on? I'm drawing on the next plane, which is curve 2. Hit OK. And I can kind of stay. Oops. The key to this here is you want to make sure you're not drawing on face. You're drawing on work plane. That's a key thing that it needs to be done. And I draw something different, and I can modify these points afterwards if I want to make it bold, come this way, and I want to align this. I'm not going to get super crazy with it. I'm going to hit finish. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to do a quick detail line, grab that, copy, go to my next one, paste that in place. So there's my one I just drew, and do it again one more time. So I'm going to go back here, grab back into my family, edit in place, go to level 1, go to this section now, and do the exact same thing one more time. Pick plane, curve 3, hit OK. Make sure that we're set. That work plane, yep, drawing my work plane here. Said once you draw it, you can modify the nodes. I'm not going to get too crazy, just modify a little bit. Okay, finish. And now I can see in 3D, here are my 3 curves that are all together. If I go back in, edit in place again, I can select all 3 of these by clicking that one, clicking that one, clicking that one, and then I create a form, and it lofts that between those 2. So now I have a loft that lofts between those 3 curves. I can finish mass, and now that that's created, that's just a mass. That's not a wall. It's not anything. It's not something that you want to use in your documentation. It's just a plane that I can now work off of. So I can go to walls. We didn't talk about this that much when you create walls, but there is a wall by face command. I click on my wall by face. I can't do a curtain wall, so I'm going to do. I made a generic wood. Is it right here? I guess it is. So now I can click on that face, and now I have a wall that matches that face. That is the start of my wall, my louver. So one, that could be your wall, but the next step I had to do, I'm not going to go through the entirety of it, but I'll just show you quickly. To make them louvers, I had to do one more model element, which is a void. So now I'm looking at the face of that wall, and I have to create a new component, model in place. I'll make it a wall, so I made it the category of wall. Hit OK. I'll call this louvers. And now I can make void forms. So if I wanted them to be louver, so I made that face plane, so I'm going to use that plane. So I'm going to scroll into here. Here's my face. Hit OK. I'm not going to get super crazy with this. I'm just going to show you that with this void, with a void form, I can then use that. I can finish model. It's going to tell me that, oops, hold on a second. So I can cut. It won't let me do anything because it's not cutting. I can cut. I can click void. I can click that wall. And now I can finish. What I'm seeing there is the mass. So if I go back to the massing, I turn off the mass. I now have a hole in that wall. Imagine me copying that over 100 times. Now I have louvers that are curved in a way that I want them to be curved, right? That's kind of like, wow, that can make interesting things. It's a very hard documentation style because then I have to, if I want to change it, I have to like either do that all over again, or if I'm really smart and I don't ever delete that mass, I can come back to this mass and I can edit in place. and I can modify these curves, and then usually I can't remember. Edit profile, is that what I want? There we go. Good call. So now I can, if like, let's say that was too drastic, I wanted to pull this back a little bit, I can do that. I can finish this again. You'll see my wall does not match it right now. But if I click on wall, I can update to face, and now it conforms back to that original surface that I created. The hard part is you can never delete that mask. The second that mask gets deleted, the connection's lost and you can't ever update it ever again. So you have to build it from scratch all over. Like I said, that's hyper custom. Probably not utilized a whole bunch. Ideal, like if a firm was designing a facade like that, they would likely use something like Rhino or Grasshopper or Dynamo to create those shapes. So that way they could modify them easily. But that's a little bit high of a bar for some of y'all right now. But if you're interested in it, I'm open to it, as Tim seems to be. So that's that. Then the last but not least was probably one of the more complex things that you can do in here is, let me just turn the masses off again, is what are called adaptive components, which fall into curtain systems. So this falls into your guys' category a little. What I did here, same exact thing, is I have to build a mass. I'll turn the masses back on. I have to build a mass of some sort, so I will see if I can just quickly build a quick mass here. It just has to represent the surface that you want. So I just drew a rectangle on the ground. I hit create form. It's going to extrude that up. So now it gives me a mass to work off of. What adaptive components fall into are something called curtain systems. So if I select a face of this mass, I can divide this surface. So I can click divide surface. And then in here, I've now created this grid pattern. There are all these standardized patterns. So I can do hexagons. I can do, Jim would do something like this, the half step pattern. Tim, I'm not sure what pattern you want to do, but you would have to do something like a rhomboid or a hexagon or octagon or something like that. You create this pattern and you can change the number of, you all are in like Viz4 right now, potentially. There are Grasshopper scripts that create patterns on surfaces. I can't remember the plugin right now. Say Lunchbox creates patterns. It's a similar, very similar thing. And then what you have to do to fit into that, what I did quickly was create a what's called an adaptive component, and I will show you what that looks like. Do I have it still open here? So boop, boop, boop. Where did I save it? Okay, is this it right here? So this adaptive component, you can create them. You can create any component that fits in those shapes. So I created a rhomboid one, and all I did was create a surface that, you know, it has a slight slope to it. Let me change the scale of this a little bit. It has a slight slope to it, and then has a parameter on it that allows me to change the opening, so it can get larger or smaller. And then once I load that into the family, once I load that into the project, I can then, so I'll show this guy here, edit in place. Let me change this pattern to, so I made a rhomboid pattern. So you can see right here, once you load it into the project, it comes in and you can see it underneath that pattern. And all I did was select it once I created that family. It's going to take a second. Oop, didn't like it. I'm not sure why it didn't like it. Oh, probably too small. Let me make it Still too small. What am I doing here? Oh, I did it by distance last time, I think. Let's see. What's that? Trying to move too quick. Okay, so I created it by distance. I think I made him 2 feet by 2 feet. And then I now have this pattern that I can start to manipulate by coming in here and selecting each one. I made it an instance parameter, so I can change the opening on each individual one. All I need to do is select them and change it, which is what I did over here. So there's a more closed version at the bottom and then a more open version at the top. Like I said, this is a little bit more advanced stuff. You're welcome to attempt it. I will do my best to help you. I am also don't do this in my daily life, so it's something I hope someday somebody has enough money, tells me that they want to do something like this, and then I get to play with it forever. But the greater point being is you can do that stuff. You can make those things. People do use Revit to document that kind of stuff. They do. You can tie in Rhino to it. You can use, like, you could write a Grasshopper script that tells me when to open that parameter versus not open that parameter. I won't write the script for you, but I can help you. I do know Dynamo. I'm just dangerous enough that I could probably help you do it, but you're going to have to do some of the heavy lifting first. Cool. So that is really a very high primer of things you can do. And that's my shtick.
I think it's a great demonstration of how you can do these things. The question I always want to know is why you're doing it. Why you created those shapes, why is it dead, or why does it open up, why is it closed down? Is it a tight screening, is it shading east and west like it does with folks high and low in the sun? So as you're doing these are beautiful things, but think about how they're going to be used and how they're going to help solve the problem you're trying to do with these screens. Where do they, what is it? Have you done sun studies with them? But they know how to do sun studies.
I don't know if they know how to do it.
Well,
So one thing I did want to show, if we had time, two things you need to do once you decide where your project is. You need to make sure that your compass is facing the right direction, right? So right now, my south is down and north is up. If that's not the way your site is, you need to shift that around, and I can help you do that. And if you want to,
now we have the campus site.
so if you need to change that, so you can see right now north is up. The way you do that in Revit is not. I can't just like click on this and rotate it. What you have to do is in a plan view, you need to make sure there are two different kinds of north in Revit. There's project north and true north. We'll get into that at a different time. It's not important at this juncture. Right now, what's important is to change true north. Your plan has to be set to true north, so the orientation in the panel over here in the properties panel has to be true north. And then I go to manage, and over here, well, one, you should set the location. So you need to click on that, the little, all projects in Revit start in Boston. So you need to click on that little world button to make sure you're at the right location. So I just put Philadelphia generically, but you could put an exact address if you want. So do that first. And then two, I have to change the position. So once I click on position, you'll see I can rotate true north as one of the options. So when I click on that, it's telling me that it's pinned. If I want to rotate it, I have to unpin. So just click on that. So now I'm rotating. The key bit here is when you rotate, you're rotating the opposite direction, right? So if I want north to be 45 degrees to the left, so if I want north to be, up and to the left of this page, I have to rotate to the right 45 degrees, right? So if I go 45 degrees that way, you'll see that nothing changed about the compass because I'm rotating true north, but my whole project rotated. So if I shift back to project north, my project goes back, and now north is 45 degrees to the left. So you're going to screw that up. You're going to forget. Just make sure that when you rotate it, you look at north and it's the way you want it to go. And if it went the exact opposite way, like I do 50% of the time, undo it and then do it the other way. But now it's facing north, so that's how you rotate and get the right north. And then the other thing I wanted to show quickly was that if you want to do like a planned sun study, like you want to like look at your space and see how shade and shadow shade and shadow and light are passing over your floor plan, you can't just, if you click on this level right here, so I'm looking at a plan of my roof. If I just like click on my roof, if I just select all my roof members here and I hide them, oops, I isolated them. I want to hide them, hit everything else. If I click on that and I just hide element, it's not going to show you accurate shadow. It's going to show you as if the roof isn't there. So it's going to show you a lot more light than actually is real. So you can't just hide the roof and see what the shadow is. So the hack to do a plan like that, just real quick, if you want to see what shade and shadow are actually going to look like in your project in a plan view, one, you could do a 3D view, like an image inside your building looking at it. But if you want to see the whole plan all at once, because like you can look, I think I have some 3D views. I'll show you that in a second. If I go in section, I look at a section of my project. The way to hack it is in a section, go to view. There is is it in view? I'm blanking right now. Oh, right here. Nope. Where is it? What am I missing? Why does something look different? Oh, 3D view, sorry. So under 3D view, there's a camera. I click on camera. The first thing you need to do, and you need to do this before you click anything, is you need to turn off the perspective. And then I put my camera facing straight down and do your best to like hit it right. Camera faces straight down. And now I'm in a camera in my project looking down on the floor plan. And if I turn shadows on, these are more accurate shadows. And I can turn on my sun path on. And I can, let me just uncrop it for a second. And now I can modify, the time of day. I can modify the month of the year. And I could see more accurate shadows happening inside the space. Any other way isn't going to show you an accurate. I mean, this is probably also not perfectly accurate, but it's good enough.
That's great hack. Also, I mean, just putting a camera inside, looking at your structure to see where the light is hitting on the floor can tell you a lot. My intent of this part of the project is to kind of treat this as a digital version of at least my studio, our studio, did cardboard models and went to the helium. We were trying to test what kind of light is getting in there, where to meet the shade. Maybe you have a soft wall, you don't have to worry about it. If you have glass wall, then you have to think about what does the light get in. It's the digital version of a sun study model. Just to see where you're going to put your solid walls, where you're going to put your glass walls, where glass walls need some kind of shading and what kind of shading they should have. That's the main goal of this part of the project in terms of deciding what kind of envelope to wear.
Say again, sorry? So, to put the compass on in any view, doesn't matter, but in a plan view, is this button down here. You'll see currently it would look something like this. There's a little sun with a little light bulb, and it should say sun path off. If you click on it and you turn sun path on, you'll now see the sun paths. You'll see what time of day it is, what day of the year it is, and then north, south, east, west. So I'll just say this, when you create interior views, if you, I'll create a new one for a second. In a plan or whatever view, do this exact same thing. You go to 3D view, I take a camera, I drop my camera, I look in a direction, and now I'm looking that way. If I want to see shadows, I have to turn them on, which is the button next to the sun button. We'll turn the shadows on. The shadows are a little overbearing, so I always adjust them a little, graphics a little bit. We could have a template, our template adjusts them differently, but so to adjust the time of day in a view or the how some of the stuff shows, you go to this graphic in the view, you go to the graphic display options, and then I could turn on consistent colors or whatever view you want. But then there's shadows, so I can just cast shadows. I can also show ambient shadows. But what I like to do is adjust the sun, ambient light, and these. This is just my thing. I always do 60, 40, 20. You can do your own, pick your own, whatever you think looks good. But you can see that it's softened. I want to change it to consistent colors, but it softens the shadows a little bit. And I could also turn on the ambient shadows, which will kind of show like that ambient occlusion in the corners, if you want. But then if I want to, right now this is just in session, so this actually is not the sun in my current location, so it's just at 135 degrees azimuth and 35 degrees altitude. If I want it to be on my site with a specific day and time, I can either do still, and then there's my location, and I can pick the day and time. I could do single day. This is how you would start to do sun studies, where you can like create an animation over the course of a year. So you can do a single day, so you could do every hour over the course of a day. You could do multi-day. This is that's what it was on before. So if I just want to see a single day, let's say I wanted to see the winter solstice at 12 p.m., I could apply it. That's winter solstice. I want to see the spring equinox. I could see these different, there's summer solstice.
Sorry, what we did Heliodon with the 9 different conditions. 2 solstices, but not morning, noon, and evening, or late afternoon, depending on where it is. And so those conditions give you a good idea of where the sun is getting in or not getting in, what time of day, what time of year. You like sun in the winter, you don't like sun in the summer, but if you block the sun all year, you got a very tight grid here at Louver, so much getting in here.
Yeah, I didn't build my louvers for sun. I just built them for graphical purposes. I'm illustrating an idea.
That's what you want to size Louver based on real sun information. That's what we're looking here. Revit is a tool, but the goal is to create a shop.
All right. Any questions on any of that nonsense?
Do you want to drop the skyline? Do we not want to do roof? Is it too much to do with roof?
Well, Tiago had a roof system that he was trying to do. What do you want? You want to? Dropping in a skylight is as easy as dropping in a window. That's one option, which is, you kind of talked about that a little bit, but you would insert load Autodesk family. You would go to your windows, and I believe right here is a flat skylight that you could add. This roof, my roof is already sloped, so I can add a flat. If I add a flat one, I could pick a size, and then I can go to my window, and now I have a skylight in it. That's one option. Then any other option, that's a skylight. There's clear stories, which would be kind of what Tiago, I think, was talking about. Was he wanted to do something where the center section of the roof was elevated, and then maybe you'd have clear stories around. So to do a clear story, I would model my roof potentially similar to this. If I wanted to change the slope of it, I could change it to be a little steeper here. Let's see if I can copy it across. So that's a little steeper than the other bit. And then I would basically, to create the clear story, if I wanted like, one, I have to bring my columns up too, because now now my beam is down here, just structurally speaking. I need to have either another column that posts off of this beam and comes up and grabs another beam up here, which would likely make this beam potentially heavier now, or a deeper beam, because before, anybody know why? If I basically, before these roofs were supported on these three beams, boom, 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 and now they're high up. So what would I need to do structurally to make that work? So that before these three were down here sitting on there. So what's one method that I could support these guys? What's a method? Any ideas? Running. So, okay. Say again, sorry. I'm not sure I fully understand, but I think what running the opposite way. So what do you mean by running the opposite way? So have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beams running down the center lines of those panels? No, it's not, I mean, what I would do, likely what I would start to do. Yeah.
So you want something under the thin edge.
So yeah, so I need to support. So what I won't get it go. Um, so what? Yeah. So one, the center beam is fully inside of that. Is grabbing those two, so that can just be raised up, and then the columns that supported it. But also, is there a column there? Column here is going to go. I don't know how high it needs to go. Is going to come up to grab that column, to grab that guy. So that'll come up, that'll grab that. So then the beam down here can be supported low, and then this one can be raised up and supported high. That's all well and good. Then I'm floating out here, meaning that this is kind of cantilevering out. So one thing I could do potentially is rotate the CLT and run a beam down the center and then rotate the CLT the opposite direction. So instead of going long ways, I could go short ways. So I could have two beams and going over, and it would just cantilever at the ends. It's one option. If I didn't want to do that for some reason, I'd probably have to put another column. I'd have to maybe extend this beam out like this. And maybe they could cantilever that far. I don't know. Maybe Craig knows. So I dropped the column down. 13. Oops. Something like that.
Now they do frame this, and that's gonna be the trickier.
There's many tricky pieces of. There's 1,000 ways to do it. There's this way. The other way I thought was, I post another column on top of this beam here. Oops, it's not a beam. There's a beam right there. I do a column that up and grabs that end, but then that beam is a point load on that. Or there's a column coming down and it's adding a point load to this beam right here. So then this beam might get deeper to grab that weight, yada, 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 all that fun stuff. Either way, come up with some idea. None of us know what a structural engineer would want to do, but you should at least think about it. So you can't not think about it. So either way, I'd bring it up, and if I wanted to put glazing, I would literally just build curtain wall. So I would go into, look at this, where I think this is my edge of my roof. I would draw a curtain wall. I'll just use whatever I have in here. I think it's right here. So that's not obviously not what I want, but I can edit the profile of this curtain wall. I can match it to the roof lines. So I just matched it to the bottom roof and the top. What's the question? Sorry, go ahead.
If it's tucked under that CLT membrane, can't you just attach top to base, or is it not really a roof? The CLT roof.
Is what, not the CLT
If
roof?
the curtain wall was under the CLT roof,
Mhm.
above, couldn't you just attach top to base rather than having to redo the profile? So that way when you move the roof,
You could, yes. Dealer's choice. Yes, you can do that. So what you're suggesting is if the roof was fully, I won't do that. That would have done it. But I could hit attach top and base. I could attach that. It's going to delete that, and I could attach here potentially. So did it attach? So you can see that I have to make this bigger, I think.
you have to click the top left.
There we go. So attach base. So I could do that. That tool is useful. I don't like it. Because what happens, so yes, to answer your question, yes, you can do that. What I don't like is that at some point somebody out there is going to adjust something and not be paying attention. And then everything's going to shoot back up. And then someone's going to come in and be like, what the heck happened to this building? I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. So when you get your jobs and you work at your firms, do what they want you to do. If it was me, I don't like to use that command all that often, with some exceptions. So I don't know exactly what I would have done here, but yes, you can do it. So I'll undo that, and there we go. And also things like this happen. So like what's less likely to happen is what I did. What's more likely to happen is what's happening at the end, where somebody adjusts something and doesn't realize that it's not perfectly overlapped now, and then a mullion shoots up through the roof like that. If you edit the profile, I also don't like editing the profile of things sometimes. You know, it's really, Revit is a monster that people are going to tackle in their own ways, and I don't like those tools for some reasons. But if I wanted to do this clear story, this is one way to do it. Any other questions? All right.
That demonstration, like breaking a section, just keep it on the module to keep it, but you don't have any of the problems. A weird situation, so it's easier when you're gonna stay on the module sometimes. Doesn't always work.
So have an idea, start to test it, start to figure out what your ideas are. Craig and I can at least walk around for the next 20 minutes and see where you're at, see what questions you have. But you should be able to do most of what your dreams are.
Yeah.